Welcome back to second technical session. So now we have 5 papers, and I request Professor A.M. Pushti sir, please chair the session. I request Madam L.P. Sahu Madam, please chair the session. Who is the reporter?
So now we are starting post-lunch session. So good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Professor Puste from BCKV, West Bengal. And in this technical session, co-chairman of this technical session, Dr. L.P. Sahu, and a rapporteur, Dr. Rakesh Singh. And here is our beloved student from BCKV, Chiranjeev is also with us. So jointly, we are going to start jointly both the technical session jointly together here. So out of 7 to 8 presenter, the 5 presenter will be presenting their paper. I am calling about their name and serial number of this presentation. First one, Dr. M. Suresh, who will present. Okay, please. And Dr. Alapashami and Mr. B.S. Behra, serial number 3, Dr. Alapashami, he is serial number 2, and 4 is Dr. P. Shatra, and 5 is 5 serial number, Mr. L. Kandra. So first of all, of this technical session, we will have to start. Prior to this, I am telling 1 or 2 sentences like this. So this seminar is very much related to the agriculture production system and sustainability. So all the paper up to this extent, whatever I have visualized here, that more or less very related with this related topic, thematic ideas, who have particularly designed this sort of national programs here. So first of all, I am calling upon Dr. M. Suresh for presenting his paper.
Good afternoon, respected delegates and my dear students. The last presentation. So it's my privilege to stand before you for the presentation of my topic on ICT in agriculture for sustainable agriculture development. So interactive communication technology, because basically I'm an extension man, I'm a professor in extension, Acharya N.G. Ranga Agriculture University. At present I'm working as a principal scientist and coordinator at DAT Center, Srikakulam, Andhra Pradesh. Okay? So ICT readiness for stakeholders. ICT, you know, interactive communication technology. Today morning you people might have heard about the technological aspects related to the agriculture for sustainable development. So most of the agriculture technologies, whatever we develop, finally they should be useful to the farmers. So unless the farmer, who is the ultimate user of our technology, is not convinced with our technology and he is not in a position to use our technology, the question of sustainability arises, whether it is for a technology or for a field or for an operation or for anything else. So keeping that thing in view, so how do you transfer the technology to the farmers, whatever we develop in the labs? So keeping that thing in view, we people have developed so many extension methodologies to reach the unreached. Right from the beginning of the development of the agriculture technology, we are putting our efforts to push our technologies onto the heads of the farmers. Some of the technologies are being accepted by the farmers, might be because of our extension efforts, or some of the technologies are not being accepted by the farmers because of the failure of our extension efforts, or might be the lack of the strength in the technology. So whatever you develop, whatever the technology you develop, ultimately to be sustainable on the field, the technology should have the 3 basic premises. They can be the cultural compatibility. So the number one is whatever the technology you develop, it should be compatible with the existing culture of the farmers. So because all of a sudden if you bring something new, so he may not be in a position to accept it because some cultural conflict situation will arise. So totally it will stop at the beginning itself. And the second aspect is the economic viability. So mostly the farmers will look at the economic aspects, whether they can afford to eat or not. So that you have to think. And then finally the social acceptability, right? So the society should accept it. Once it has to fit in the culture, and next it should be economically viable, and finally it should be acceptable by the entire society. So if you see whatever the technology that have been developed, not only in the field of agriculture, in any subject for that matter, to be sustainable on this particular field, the technology should have these three basic premises. Okay? Once we achieve these three basic premises, now let us think about how to take this technology to the farmers. Because our ultimate targeted beneficiaries are the farmers. So keeping that thing in view, I have designed this particular topic just a few hours before, that is ICT, Interactive Communication Technology. The next slide, please. So you see ICT, you see what for we have to communicate with the farmers. So because, so you know very well, right from the plant to the scientist or solution to the problem, there is a mediator in agriculture who is nothing but the farmer. So their information needs are repeatedly being changed based on the right from the pre-sowing condition to pre-harvest condition to post-harvest condition and market information. These are the four stages at which the farmer is frequently depending upon the information sources where to get the information, right? At the time of sowing, he has to search for the inputs, where to get the quality inputs. Today morning we have discussed so many technologies, where to get all those technologies. And again, a very important factor, credit, money. Unless it is not there in his hands, he cannot move further, right? And the weather information, weather forecasting, climate resilience, these are all, and then soil testing. Which fertilizers, what fertilizers, based on the soil strength only, he has to go for all his agronomic practices. So based on pre-harvest and good agriculture practices and pest management, techniques of harvesting and packaging. Once they have been harvested, you see, there are all the where to, how to store, how long to store, and how to market, where to market, when to market. So all these questions will arise. So there should be some source of information for the farmer regarding all these information needs. Next, please. So you see, if you see the present agriculture scenario, our agriculture is contributing to nearly, based on the 22.3%, it has been contributing, and nowadays it is even around, it is still oscillating around 20 to 25 in between, right, even after one decade. Next, please. So you see, the agriculture extension, we are trying to transfer the technologies right from research stations or rather the research labs or rather the experimental stations to the farmers through various means, right? Direct methods, indirect methods, direct contact, face-to-face. We are using the print media, electric media nowadays, web media we are using. So in all these cases, so if you see the comparative picture of the states, of all the states of India, you can see Gujarat is progressing with alarming rate when compared to the average Indian is somewhere around 5 to 6%, you see. Next, please. Now you see most of the agriculture technologies, if you look at, most of the agriculture technologies are being transferred by the input dealers. So you may be very aware of this particular situation in our Indian conditions. Mostly our farmers are credit-oriented farmers, and for any kind of technical consultancy, they go to the input dealers, and based on the input dealers' advice, they go for agriculture. So depending upon his own preferences, he will try to dispose of his own produce, and he tries to dispose his own technology to the farmer. So keeping that thing in view, the most of the agriculture informations are being depend on the other progressive farmers. It is somewhere around 16 to 17%, and also on the input dealers. So mostly these two are the main influential factors for the farming community is concerned regarding the information sources. Next. Now you see how the information is flowing to the, nowadays at present, we are having the ICR institutes. At the state level, we have state agriculture universities or the agriculture universities. At the district level, we have Krishi Vigyan Kendras or the DAT centers as in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Or at the village level, farmers are mostly dependent upon the other agripreneurs or farmers cooperatives like that. Next, please. Now you see, this is about the Indian agriculture. What are the major problems what we are facing because of this present situation? Our yields are very low because our productivity levels are very low when compared to the world averages, and the quality is inconsistent because we don't have sustainable agriculture systems that are being developed in our country. So quality is inconsistent. These are not matching with the global standards. And farmers are very poor in terms of their resources and also for their financial status. And the post-harvest losses are also very low. And lack of knowledge about domestic and as well as international markets. Our farmers, they don't know where to dispose of their produce. They will just immediately after the harvest, they will wait for somebody to come to their own village and take back their produce and give something whatever they can get. So that is how the marketing pattern has been happening in our country. That is because of the lack of information and also the missing link between lab to land, that is the extension gap. You see, in our Indian conditions, extension personnel per family, for 300 farmers, we have one extension worker. In some cases, it is ranged up to 2,000. Okay? This is how the technological dissemination system and the technological generation system, where the gap, that is nothing but the extension gap, which we have to bridge. Next. So this is the way to reach the unreached. That's what I have told you, with the modern technology with minimum time. Because you see, technologies are being developed at the research system. Our scientists are doing enough job. They are developing the technologies for the benefit of the farmers. But ultimately, they are not, we can't see those technologies as at the speed how they are being developed at the research stations. And with the same speed, we are unable to see them in the farmers' fields. Why? The spread of the technology in our Indian conditions are very low. There are so many factors which are influencing the spread of the technology from a technology generation system to the technology utilization system. Next, please. Now you see, everybody knows nowadays a simple technology which has revolutionized our day-to-day lives, right? Everybody knows that. A simple technology which has revolutionized our lives for the past 10 years, right? That is cell phone. So very easy, the communication has been improved, right? Yeah, no problem. The communication has been improved, the technology has been improved, the reach has also been improved. Within a short span of 10 years, you see how much percentage of population are being covered under this particular technology. Almost every nook and corner of the country is trying to be touched or rather tapped by this particular technology. So how can we bank upon this particular technology for the transfer of our agriculture information? So keeping that thing in view, many efforts or many initiatives have been taken by the Government of India or rather the state governments or rather other stakeholders like the input agencies or the private dealers or the marketing agencies. So many people have taken so many initiatives. Next, please. See, these are all the touchscreen kiosks. We have developed certain touchscreen kiosks where a kiosk will be there. It will answer all your questions. And computer-based information systems, you can, like chatting, you can ask the questions and they will give you the replies. And the smartphone-based applications, you have all the apps, you know, the smartphone apps, you know. So the same agriculture information also can be developed into a single app where you can get that particular app as an information, and radio-based broadcast, and voice-based mobile advisory systems, SMS-based mobiles, smart alerts, and tablet-based information systems, and community video programs. These are all some of the informational tools which are being used under ICT for transfer of technology. Next, please. So that is what nothing but ICT, the basic definition is, under the gamut of umbrella, how the information can be transmitted to the farmers to reach the unreached in a shortest possible time. Next. So this is a very key role in improving the availability of the agriculture production and market information in the developing countries, because you see, only India is one of the countries nowadays in the underdeveloping, we can't say underdeveloping, it's a developing country where the majority of the farmers are dependent on the extension system. Most of the advanced countries and the Western countries, farmers are not depending on the extension system. They are having their own informational tools to explore the agriculture information where from they can meet their agriculture needs. You see, then internet-based market information, farm advisory systems. Next, please. So you see, these are all the ICT innovations, village knowledge centers we can develop. These are all the technological options what we have, and these are all being developed in our country also. Nowadays, they are taking their lead. A win-to-win situation for all, group meetings we can organize, and then newspapers. These were the earlier innovations based on which we can move further. Next, please. Say radio, television, you know how they will be useful for transfer of agriculture information. Next, please. Then these are the nowadays, every organization is trying to develop their own kiosks at their level, where by incorporating all the agriculture information in a single screen with various multiple options, so that depending upon pressing the option, you can get the particular information like your menu screen like that. Next, computer terminals, interactive video communications, video conferencing, and the voice calls. Next, please. Then internet. So for most of the agriculture operations, you know, informational needs, So in IT also, we are purely depending on the internet based. That's why the government of India is also trying its level best to connect all the villages with the data network. Maybe nowadays we have reached up to the 3G. Maybe in a short time 4G is also coming, so that the technology rate of information downloading is also will increase. So the speed of the technological information download will also increase, so it will be accessible to almost all the farmers in the shortest possible time. And you know the mobile also. Next please. So use of information communication technology in India at various levels, how it has been done. You see, if you compare the situation from March 2000 to March 2008 and now to 2015, so the technology has been much more increased. Right, next please. So these are some of the ICT initiatives what have been taken. Government is leading certain ICT initiatives, and the private sector is taking certain initiatives, and NGOs are taking certain initiatives. Next please. Next please. So if you see government initiatives like TNAU Agri-Tech portal, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, they have started their own portal like that over a period of time, maybe in a short due course of time. Your Centurion University may have your own portal to meet the needs of the farmers in and around this particular Parlakamidi area. Next please. The e-Chopal. The e-Chopal is an ICT effort that has been taken by some of the marketing agency groups in Gujarat and Maharashtra, where they want to transfer the technology, market their produce. This is actually marketing-based IT initiative that has been taken by the farmers of the Maharashtra and Gujarat. Even it has been extended to so many other states also. Next please. And then Agris portal. Next please. It's a government of West Bengal initiative. Next. Next to e-Sagu. This is the initiative taken by the government of Andhra Pradesh. Triple IT has developed this. This is the initiative taken by the government of Andhra Pradesh, where the farmers can ask the questions, timely information will be provided. Next please. So this is how the farmer can contact with the coordinator again with the community system will again go to the experts. And finally, all these people will be connected to the agriculture information system, that is nothing but the portal to which the farmers will be connected to. Next please. So these are all various kiosks and information systems. Next please. So then mobile technology, mobile telephoning, you can telephone it, you can text it, you can talk it, you can voice it, whatever it is, you can get back the information from the farmers, from the scientists. And then, so you see how the various screens have been improved. TV screens, you see TV viewing has been increased from 2005 to 2010, whereas 500 per head. And then number of PC users in India, it is also been increased. And number of mobile phone users, it is also been increased. You see, this is the information from the tribe we have observed. And you see how the trends have been increased. Next please. Then MVS, mobile vehicles market, how it is also been increasing from year to year. Next please. So this is how the density of mobile is increasing. 80% of the population are being covered, but the number-wise we are very high, but proportion-wise, percentage-wise, we are somewhat, still we have to compete with the countries like USA, Indonesia, and Brazil. Next please. So this is virtual KV case. This is there some ICR NEIP initiative, virtual KV case. That means virtually you can interact with the KV case.
Yeah. Please you conclude.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Virtually you can interact with the KV case, and where you have 6 to 7 experts will be there. So you can virtually interact with them to meet your agriculture informational needs. Next please. Then VKVK services, you can voice the message, you can text the message. In a state of Andhra Pradesh, Annapurna Krishi Prasar Yojana, there is a scheme operated by the government of AP. In some of the KVKs, it's as a nodal project, it has been implemented in 5 KVKs in the state of Andhra Pradesh, and shortly it is going to be extended to the other KVKs. Next please. So Agropedia is another initiative taken by the government of AP. Next. Agropedia, this is something like a Wikipedia. I think you people might be knowing about the Wikipedia. If you open the Google Wikipedia, you can get all the information, whatever you want. Similarly, in agriculture also, you can get whatever the information that you want. Next, please. Now you see, ICR, Agropedia, package of practices, everything you can get. Next, please. So this is dynamic market information, how the information is being continuously changing. Next, please. So these are the live tools. In some, if you don't have the smartphone, this is another alternative, where it's something like the old Nokia phone also, you will be having the live tool options. There also you can have the agriculture information. Next please. So these are all the various ICT initiatives taken by different people in different parts of the country, and the ultimate benefit is for the small and marginal farmers who are connected with this IT. Next please. These are all the different initiatives. Next. These are all next. 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 This is the present position. So keeping all these things in view, these are the present challenges we have to face in the usage of the ICT technology. Of all, only the first thing is reachability. So whether that particular network is being reached to it, and purchasing power in the rural areas. Of course, every farmer is nowadays using the phone. So if he can just afford to have one more few more thousands or hundreds of rupees, he can get it. Literacy levels, of course, for the smartphone, he need to be very much literate, but otherwise, it's not much. And the farmer benefits simple technology, and door delivery of information is limited because this is directly connected to your system. Next, please. So these are some of the references or the websites where you can go for your information updates. So thank you very much. This is my topic.
So thank you, Dr. M. Suresh. He has elaborately described all of the efforts, starting from the different corners of the country as a whole, from the institute level, from the government level, from the private level, how far the technology is to be disseminated from where it has been developed and where it is to be dumped, from the source to sea. So it is the important, I think so, to students who are particularly dealing with this subject, extension, that is a great role, particularly ICT, transfer of technology, improvised any type of field demonstration. So it needs, particularly in our developing country like India. So next we will have to step in. Next, we will have to step in Dr. Apalash Sami, and the presentation is, and scientist ICR Andhra Pradesh. Presentation is Future Challenges of Plant Breeding Research for Sustainable Food Security. So, I am calling.
So good morning, good afternoon to all the students and my senior and junior colleagues. So I would like to present, after having a lunch, tomorrow's food security. So what is the India's challenge? That is very important. So after 35 years, 2050, the government of India is focusing. Already the world is also focusing, the developed countries is focusing 2050. So what will be happen in 2050? So what will be the future and what are the challenges? Because the breeder has to answer the challenges. The main concern in agriculture is the variety. The main input is seed. So if you develop a variety, without any intervention of any technology, farmer will adopt. So that is one of the important thing. The variety can do anything. Then what is the position of today's India's position and what is the focus or challenges? The next to 2050, just only I would like to present in only broad ways. That is what are the challenges for the sustainable food security and what the plant breeding has to do. That already the Green Revolution plant had contributed a lot of things. But again, now it is another revolution who has to think, because it is a competitive revolution. A Green Revolution, there is no competency, only consistency. But as per the WTO, now the regime has gone as a competitive agriculture, okay? At the same time, we have to sustain ourselves. What are the future challenges mainly? In developing countries, developed countries already control each and every, some of the components of here. The developing countries, just like India, is not controlled. Mainly the population, the oil reserves. One of the important things I would like to present here, by 2050, 90% of oil is not available to the developing countries. Only the oil is available to the USA. So we have to think the farm mechanization, what will be the happen in 2050. Just only a beautiful projection I would like to present here. This is one of the important projection we have to think and we have to understand, because you are there, some of the future breeders are there, you are the breeders are there. The oil reserves in the entire world by 2050, the blue line, you can see, it will come to the 10 million barrels. At present, we had 80 billion barrels per day. So drastically, as a law of diminishing returns, all the oil reserves will come down very fastly after 2030. That is alarmingly, the developed countries, USA, already completed the solar research. So they are not in a position to go for total to anything. Already they had oil reserves, they had solar information. But again, just like developing countries like India, we are again entirely dependent upon the oil. So once oil cut down, we have to think our fate in 2050. In the same manner, phosphorus reserves. Phosphorus fertilizer we are using very extensive in agriculture. Without phosphorus, no agriculture. Yes, sir? Yeah. Yeah. So these two important points I would like to say. Oil reserves will come down. You have to think for the farm mechanization in an alarm way. And in the same manner, the phosphorus reserves, they are confined to very locally available to only the end users are maximum China and India. Population, you can see developing countries already controlled. The developing countries, there is no control. India may reach 1.6 billions by 2050. Then one more important, urbanization. 51% of Indian population may become urban. Only 49% of the farming community, they have to feed the 100. Now the friend had been explained, 72% of rural population. Now by 2050, only the 49%. As per the per capita availability, everything will increase in alarmingly. So we have to meet. Otherwise, there is sustainability. Projection demands. If you see demands and production, oil crops, lot of gap will be developed by 2050, then followed by the fruits and other cereals, particularly rice and wheat. There is no problem for us, but other crops we will have to face a severe problem in future. So if you see, our system is rainfed agriculture, particularly our Andhra Pradesh, mainly in the Orissa, it is in a dry subhumid condition. That is one of the limiting factor of not getting a maximum yields in our area. Then grass cropped area, there is no change, but under groundwater area is increasing by 50%. That is one of the important. In Madhya Pradesh, 50 feet water, now it has become a 500 feet. By 500 feet only we are getting the irrigated water in Madhya Pradesh. Fertilizer consumption. You can see very, very beautifully, developed countries at 30 million tons they use it. Developing countries just like India, 4.13% or 4.3% million tons of fertilizer used after getting our independence. By increasing by 2050, developed countries, there is very minimum they use the fertilizer, whereas developing countries, they can use very excessively. So that is, for fertilizer, we have to depend on the developed countries like USA. And then water is also very limitation. Irrigation water, domestic water, and industrial water, it will be increased by 900 BM3. Then our is rainfed agriculture, 62%. Then you can see here beautifully how the rainfall area. So we are under the 100 to 150 centimeters rainfall area, Andhra Pradesh and Orissa. Then this is the districts. One more important is cyclones. These two districts, these two states particularly, alarmingly, nearly the maximum percentage of the people who are suffering for the river floods is the India. Next, Bangladesh. So this is the number of disturbances we are facing the last 100 years. Orissa is number 1, and Andhra Pradesh is number 2. So then the other, okay. Well, what are the strategies I would like to important as a plan builder? So very first important is low input system. What the advance of this society by this green revolution, high input system, excessive fertilizers, excessive irrigation, herbicides, pesticides, we made the crop lazy. Without input, the crop won't give anything. But without input, the weeds can grow like anything. So this is the strategy. So we developed our system. So by 2050, all these inputs are getting limited. So the crop is not in a position to compete even the simple weed. So the low input system is very important. Then one by one I will discuss. This is the low input system. What is the low input system? That is very important. It is not an organic agriculture. So low input system is to increase the competitiveness in the plant. That is some of the things. Leaf senescency, delayed leaf senescency. If you develop that character, one important thing is that the Satish et al. Stay green variety, they developed in wheat, 10 to 12% more chlorophyll content. So thereby they increase the yield. That is delayed leaf senescency an improved nutrient economy. That is very important. That is utilization efficiency. So now the varieties are not having any utilization efficiency. What the fertilizers use, these fertilizers are mostly used by the weeds rather than the main crop. Why? Because the root morphology or root environment is not in a position to compete. Unless until we apply the fertilizer to the root zone, the plant is in a position to absorb. Okay, sir. This is a burning topic I would like to say. Because of that, I'm giving somewhat important things, okay? So, less environmental fitness and yield and pest disease resistance is not there. Then one important thing, climate resilient breeding we have to develop. The varieties, if you sow any time, it has to give minimum returns. Why? Because photoinsensitive breeding, we can say in our terminology, photoinsensitive breeding we have to develop, and then all maturity groups from ultra early to ultra late, thereby the farmer can in a position to adapt that variety. Okay? Then water use efficiency. This is very important. The varieties should have a maximum water use efficiency, then high phosphorus efficiency. Then one more important, resource utilization efficiency breeding. This is one of the important concepts. The breeder has to work along with the agronomist. So how best you can utilize the available resources, and what are the important traits we have to improve in the plant. Thereby the plant can use efficiently what are the fertilizer you use. So that is very important. So here you can see in this diagram, you can say both, integration of both breeding and agronomy. They are not separate sciences. So we have to integrate them, all molecular physiology and agronomy, and then you can develop the database, and finally we have to get the breeder and the farmer the variety. So agronomically, if a variety is getting a superiority, it has a maximum utilization efficiency, the variety can sustain the future. Then stress breeding, you know very well, the floods and the rain-fed agriculture, we have to give the maximum importance. Because every year we are receiving the just like cyclones. In the last 5 years, 7 cyclones we have received, these 2 states. In next 15 years, we may reach 24 cyclones and 1 or 2 maybe hudhuds. So, and then one more important, water logging. Here, very important thing is in water logging condition, ethylene is one of the important. The varieties which are having the ethylene content more, they can sustain well. They can form one important thing, parenchyma, it is in sugarcane. The varieties having a parenchyma formation, it can withstand the waterlogged conditions. Such a selections we have to apply. Then advanced GM technologies. So morning he explained you GM technology, but these are some of the advanced ones. There are site directed. So one is any genes, number of functions you can adapt in a single location. That is a site directed nucleus mutagenesis. So you can say it is a molecular trait stocking. This is one of the important technologies developed. These 3 technologies. Third one is nothing but a gene silencing methodology. This is how best we can use the molecular plant breeding in our agriculture. Then one more important thing, organic plant breeding. You might have heard the organic. So organic plant breeding is one of the important concepts. In Netherlands they started, in our India we are not in a position to hear that word. Organic plant breeding. What is organic plant breeding? Organic agriculture. The plants are not responding to the organic. Mainly he say that if you apply FIM, can't get the good yield, you can't get good yield. But if you develop such a variety which can, adapt themselves to the FIM and give the maximum yield, then there is no use of NPK, no use of urea, no use of phosphorus, no use of a potash. Only FIM you can develop a good variety. That type of concept developed in Netherlands, now they are going for. Okay? So this is one of the important concepts, organic plant breeding. At last, I will invite you all to the Vizag Fest 2015. It is now celebrating in Visakhapatnam. So, from April 10th to 19th. So come and enjoy to the Vizag. On behalf of Visakhapatnam, I invite. Finally, this is at present in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan. So we can solve this problem with this. genetics, if you apply it properly. Already one more important is CO2 sequestration. This is one of the important burning. The Department of Science and Technology is wanting the projects, DST, that is regarding this CO2 sequestration, thereby that global warming we can overcome in India. Okay? Thank you, one and all.
Actually, out of 143 million hectare of our cultivated lands, that means that is basically that is related with agriculture, out of which 101 million hectare that is under rainfed, of which some of the pockets that is very scarce, truly semi-arid dry belts of our country. So according to that, AESR, agroecological sub-regions, that means a breeder has the responsibility just to grow any type of breed from any respects in the agricultural science. So they have the every responsibility to develop such type of variety which is really site specific. That means that that would be fitted according to soil, according to climate, according to rainfall pattern, and overall the consideration of the socio-economic. So it is the most important. And our next presentation is Mr. B.S. Behra. Mr. B.S. Behra, and his paper is present. Oh, change. Yes, yes. So you please put your paper here. Okay. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected chairperson of this technical session, Professor M. Prusti sir, Dr. Lakshmi madam, honorable dignitaries of on the dais and off the dais, and student friends. My topic is the role of climate smart extension education for the sustainable way of life. Because climate smart agriculture has been spelled with, I think about the climate smart extension on a meeting with Dr. Robert Ziegler at the Philippines. And at that time, I am thinking about the sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture means agriculture is the culture of all the things. If existing of any culture in India and abroad, that is agriculture. And sustainable means sustain and evolve, means stable, means consistency. And this is my topic. Being a young scholar, I want to show some models. Next. Now population is gradually increasing. We are always thinking about the profit. If we thinking about the profit, we should thinking about 3P, people, planet, and profit. When we are talking about the Vision 2050 as per our honorable DG ICR or Dr. ICR, we should think about the sustainable consumption production, because I am a major stakeholder of UNEP 10 years program. There youths are indicating the sustainable consumption production, and I am congratulating this topic from this seminar very much. Next. This is the abstract of vision, because we young scientists can predict the climate smart models. What is coming to my mind, I have already presented. Next. Then this research to contribute to the world, because I am thinking about technology advancement refinement, because sir has been mentioned about ICT, mediated agriculture. We should think about the technological advancement refinement by promulgating the indigenous technology know-how first, because we should respect to the people's culture, and then we blend the culture with this scientific way. Next. We are thinking about the sustainable development goals, and these are the objectives problem on the study, because for making research, we should think about a research consortium, and my research is not open in India because it is working paper and I am working with 10 countries. I have developed an open-ended questionnaire, and I have taken 300 respondents, and by this stratified random sampling I have conducted this research, and I have given the mail questionnaire. Even if in my district in Odisha, I have given one format. The people are not able to converse about the climate and weather. In Odia, Panipago and Jolaba. Next. And I think this climate smart extension education should be introduced in every school or institutions, because as per the women are involved mostly agriculture because 80% women are working for agriculture. If one mother is aware, then whole family is aware. So extension education can tell about the awareness, adoption strategies, whatever. Because we young scientists or social scientists can change the attitude, attributes, and thinking about the future. Next. Then this is the methodology of research. I am thinking about the Black Bioclimatic Club and Biodiversity Lab. Because in the village system, the farmers are very literate. So me and my friend also developed a voice recognition system in order to recognize any type of language. Because the farmers are illiterate, they can use the touch screen thing. It is under process. Next. Then what should be my initiative? We are conducting the awareness campaign, social science awareness campaign and sustainable campaign with Living Farm. One of the leading NGO and RCDC is already, there are some climate smart villages in Kendrapada district. Next. Next. This is the theoretical brainchild of my research because climate smart extension model. When we think about the sustainability, we should think about the productivity, the sustainable productivity, because farmers are not always sustainable due to climatic parameters, due to marketability, due to so many things. They are not able to do these things. So we should develop a cross-cutting initiatives, and we should make a monitoring and evaluation system stronger. And for climate mitigation, there is a micro project it is undergone in CRRI. There are some varieties for climate resilience and farmers resilience. So one of the varieties is being used in Bhadrak district for flood purpose. Then this is the farmer resilience. We should think about the farmers first, because nowadays it is the farmers first, and approach means broad-based extension education. Next. Then this is the climate smart village concept, because here climate smart services are there. It should be ICT mediated approach. Then all weather should be forecasted in that village, so that a farmer can able to know the weather, temperature, everything. And that is the recommendation with the voice recognition system. Then there should be, we talking about weather insurance. Very luckily our Odisha people are getting insurance, but in other states they are not getting this type of things. Then for mitigation, we should practice zero tillage practices, or for low greenhouse gas emission, we should use ZEC, zero energy consumer. And for awareness, we should make the capacity building. And last one is the management. Management is the most important thing in sustainability. Next. This is for the climate smart economics concept, because extension economics are relevant and economics is the management part. Economics people are thinking about the low transport cost, low cost technology, and low cost market approaches. Next. This is the climate smart livelihood management. It is because this flower shows that by Hego framework or by joining our hands, it is not per individual process. It is a multi-agency approach. It is a joining hand approach. Then if students, farmers, like Farmer Student Consortium, Farmers Researchers Consortium, Farmers Industrialists Consortium, it can be successful. Then mind development model, because REFM linkage there, always know, because whenever we conducting a research, it should be extension popularized. And we should indicate to the farmers what we want. Then according to the climate, our market and farmer are integrated. As per our productivity, the market should be integrated in sustainable market. Then end user. Then end user means the people are using at the final stage. This model has been developed. Next. Then this is my concluding remarks. Climate smart extension education must be successful. If we praise climate smart agriculture, climate smart approaches in our day-to-day life, what we talk, we should practice. And what we practice, all should show. So this course should be in our agricultural universities or schools. So this is one of the citations: go green, adopt organic, march ahead, follow climate smart extension, and sustain the future. Before concluding my speech, I want to cite one thing of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru: everything stops but not agriculture. So finally, I want to thank you all agriculturists, and Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Madhav Ratnan. Thank you. Yes, sir.
we cannot avoid this sort of any type of climatological calamities or like this. So every production system, whether it may be arid zone, semi-arid, sub-humid, humid, wet, very wet. So all these are very related with the climate. So farmer who are particularly in habitats of this zone itself, so it is their duty just to grow anything like this, at least to avoid this sort of different types of climatological unusual situation like this. So, from this desk, we must convey our congratulations, thanks to Mr. Behra for his nice work, PhD work. That is the most model, questionable model. That is the very nice one who is performing at various level. So thank you, Mr. Behra. Our next speaker is Dr. P. Shatra. Please. P. Shatra. So P. Shatra, and his topic is scenario of onion production in India. So in West Bengal, there are bigger areas that is covering for the seed production of onion. There is a good role, particularly there are so many NGOs, self-help group, they are creating this sort of facilities for production, this sort of onion seed production. So I think so from the government of West Bengal level, Dr. Palash Shatra, who is an ex-basically, will present this sort of topic. Please, you start. Palash.
Good afternoon, all of you, respected chairman of the session and co-chairman, delegates and students. Today I am discussing about the present scenario of onion production in India. We know that onion is a political crop. Onion can play a political game in our economy system and our constituency and everything. I will skip some slide because here is a lot of UG students are here. There is some in India, we have lot of problems in onion production in this part of eastern part, especially Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar. Major reason for the low productivity, mainly proper variety for the seasonal proper season and climate adaptability of the particular variety, and we all know that in onion we have very less number of hybrid variety than any other crops. Some public sector now working on hybrid development, and some private sector, especially Bijay Sital, Jindal, and now Namdhari Seeds is working on hybrid seed development of onion. And we have a poor storage facility also. In India, 3 times we can grow onion: early Kharif, and the main season is Rabi. Nearly 60% come from Rabi season, and 20% each from early Kharif and main Kharif season. In case of West Bengal, I like to share about our experiences. In last year, we have grown about 5,000 bighas of onion, Kharif onion, variety Agrifarm dark red, and we get tremendous result. And now these days, the demand of Kharif onion is increasing day by day in West Bengal, especially for the economic result of the Kharif onion. We are now that period from July onwards to January, February, there is lack of supply of onion in Odisha and Bihar and West Bengal also. We mainly depend on Maharashtra, Gujarat. Those are the major onion producing state in this time. So if we go for Kharif season onion, then we can make a good profit for the farmer and well established for system for Kharif onion. Organic onion production. Why organic onion? Because generally we taking as those onion as a salad purpose, and some processed product is there. For organic purpose, organic production of onion is generally not done in India. Generally not done. But in case of exporting those onion varieties for fresh market, we will go for organic onion for fresh consumption. Post-harvest handling and storage. Three types of storage loss is there. One is weight loss, second is rotting, then sprouting. Pre-harvest factor, varietal selection. We can't store Kharif onion for a long time. We have to go for Rabi onion for storage and other variety which have higher TSS level and higher fiber level for storage. Seasonal effect, cultural operation, pre-harvest spray, and post-harvest losses are field curing, effect of length, primary grading, set curing, grading, storage condition, effect of irradiation, stake height, orientation of storage structure. Here is some export major onion exporting countries are India, China, Netherlands, Egypt, Iran, Turkey, USA and Brazil. And major importing country from India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Maldives, Nepal, Dubai, Kuwait, Indonesia, UAE, Singapore. Mainly we export to the Bangladesh from India, mainly export to the Bangladesh, Malaysia and Sri Lanka, and some Arabian countries. Major, we can see from this figure, major onion exporter is Netherlands, then India, then the rest are, and these are the qualities for export. And this depend on country, varies from country to country. These are some packet size of onion for exporting. For Malaysia and Indonesia, it's size of 10 kg. For Sri Lanka, 25 kg. Singapore, 8 kg. Philippines, 20 kg. And Gulf countries, 5, 10, 20. They prefer mainly small packets rather than the big packets, and storage, transportation is better in that case. Scope of increasing export from onion and processed product. NAFED and APEDA is mainly dealing with this export of onion. Nowadays, instead of fresh export, we can grow for powder onion flakes, powders and other which is high in TSS, varieties high in TSS. We can make a powder of those variety and export for the European countries and other Gulf countries. Future thrust. Development of high-yielding varieties, hybrids suitable for different season and production areas in the country having resistant to abiotic and biotic states. Development of onion varieties suitable for export market in dark red and light red for Gulf and Southeastern Asian market, as well as yellow and brown for European markets.
Development of white onion variety with high TSS, which I said earlier, for processing suitable for different season and export of dehydrated onions. Awareness of training farmers, traders and exporters involved in onion production, handling and marketing. Thank you. I have actually this was made for another purpose, this presentation, but here is lot of UG students, that's why I am sorting these things.
Okay. In our everyday diet, after potato, there is a great role of onion in our daily dishes, I think so. So we cannot avoid this sort of production system of onion. Even in our vegetarian belt, these are equally important. So vegetarian people, they like it. So it is one of the another demand, I think so, over the country. So production of onion is really, we are facing a lot of problems, but nowadays in West Bengal, there is more or less the production scenario has been changed to some extent.
Yes. Especially Kharif onion made an impact in
Due to production of onion seeds.
Yes.
And at farmers level, NGOs, self-help group, some of the Samuday Samiti, etc. like this cooperative organization, they are producing these onion seeds. So it is one of the production system, in the way of production system, that in every places, including other states also, they are producing a lot of onions. So due to that reason, that is the, from other state, we are not so importing this sort of onion. Okay, thank you to Palash for your nice presentation and valuable presentation also. And this is the last presentation today, paper number 5, that means Mr. L. Kanda. L. Kanda, Research Scholar, KIIT Odisha, Plant Tissue Culture Techniques for improving food quality and productivity of banana, cultivar Gandhi. Please, Mr. Kanda.
Good afternoon, respected sir, and my senior, junior, and my friend. Myself, Lakshman Kanda, I am from KT University, Bhubaneswar. Now I am going to presentation. My topic is the plant tissue culture techniques for improving food quality and productivity of banana grandinine. For the plant tissue culture is the techniques for culturing different part of the plants like stem, root, flowers or tissues or protoplast in an artificial nutrient medium under aseptic and contained condition. What is the in vitro culture? In vitro cultures are the plants expand culture on a synthetic medium in a sterile condition, in a controlled environment, and a reduced space. What is the explant? Explant, we can use any part of the plant, like stem, root, leaves. What is the synthetic medium? Synthetic medium mainly consists of the mineral salt, like the macronutrients, micronutrients, phytohormones, iron source, agar-agar, etc. What is the sterile condition? Sterile condition is the free from microorganism, bacteria, etc. What is the controlled environment? Controlled environment is the lights, temperature, photoperiod are regulated. What is the reduced space? Reduced space, any plants that cut into small pieces according to the glass container. Next. Application of the plant tissue culture. Uniformity. What is the uniformity? Uniformity is the similarity of the banana plants. And times when we are inoculation, at that time we are using we are inoculation at the same time. Rapid multiplication. What is the rapid multiplication? Rapid multiplication is we can take any part of the plants, we can produce a large number of plants in a fewer times. Production of disease-free plants. According to the pisciculture, we can produce symptom-free plants, non-seasonable production round the year. That is not fixed for the production of the banana plant in a year, month, that is around the years. Plant tissue culture also used for the conservation of the germ plasma. Next. Why I have choose banana for my works? Because worldwide production of banana, we are showing in this figure, India is one of the country which is the highest 28% of the out of the other country, highest 28% of the production of banana out of the other countries. Like China is the 9%, Philippines is the 9%, Ecuador is 7%, Brazil is 7%, Indonesia is 6%, others is 34%. Next. Consumption of the banana and other fruits in India. We are showing this figure. Banana is the one of the best fruit, which the consumption of the India is the highest, 29.4% out of the other fruits. Like papaya is a 4.8%, pineapple is a 2.6%, sapota is a 2.0%, others 9.7%, apple 3.0%, citrus 12.6%, grape is a 2.8%, guava 4.0%, lychee is a 1.1%, mango is a 28.2%. In my works, there are some of the points like introduction, aim of the study, objective of the investigation, materials and method, result and discussion, and conclusion. Come and discussion in the introduction part. Variety of Gardenia or Musa produce is the good quality of banana because it is very tasty, pulpy, and disease resistant and widely used in the world. All India families and classes and very popular. Banana and plantains are the developed world fourth most foods after rice, wheat, and maija. The crop is grown in 1 to 20 countries throughout the tropics and subtropics. Banana is the monocotyledons. Family is Musaceae, genus is Musa. By now 700 varieties of Musa are known and 100 varieties of them are cultivated. But apart from Gardenia variety is the one of them. Banana is well known as source of the carbohydrate and dietary fibers. Green banana also contains highest vitamins like A1, A, B1, B2, and C. Next. It is also suitable patient for suffering from gastric diabetes and dysentery. Banana also higher contains hemicellulose like 6.08% from the fruits and vegetables. Commercially, juice from the pseudostem is also used for dye and plants, also it is the good fibers from the textile industry. For commercially, importance of the good quality of banana are producers. Next. Aim of the study. To protocol optimization of in vitro propagation of banana variety Gardenia on MSc video with different combination of cytokinin and auxin by using sucker or rhizome as an explant. Objective of the present investigation to in vitro culture the explants of banana Musa paradisiaca variety Gardenia. To in vitro culture explant in different phases, that is initiation, splitting, multiplication, shooting, rooting, and termination. To expose the normal condition like morphological and physiological adaptation. Now comes the materials and methods. Media preparation. Media preparation using the Muras MSC media and inoculation. Inoculation and selection of the rhizome. Processing and decontamination of explant. In this figure, we are showing that complete plant of the banana. The highlighted part is the rhizome part, and also the highlighted part is the sucker part of the banana plant. Rhizome. What is the rhizome? Rhizome is the thick horizontal underground stem of the plant. Sucker is the shoot arises from of the mature plant, is the sucker of the banana. Plant materials. Banana plants were collected from the Orissa University of Agriculture and taken away to Bhubaneswar of garden variety of the banana. Surface sterilizes. Rhizomes were washed thoroughly in a running tap water for 20 minutes. Then after remove the outer layer of the plants and put in 0.1% bobistin solution, 3.45%, 3.5 minutes. Then, okay, sir. Comes in result and discussion. The results and discussion are three categories. That is the best, good, and poor. In these tables, we are showing that. In the left side is the different concentration of the oxygen. The top side the different concentration of cytokinase. In the results are showing that there are three categories. One, the best. Best is the bluish in this color, and good is the purple in color, and poor is the greenish in color. Best is the which is the 50% onwards, and good is the between 30% to 50%, and poor is the 10% to between 10% to 30%. Similarly, this table also showing the blue color is the indicator the best production of the banana, and the green color is the good result of the banana, and the node color is the poor response of the production of the banana. Similar thing this. This is the picture for the development of the banana in a different stage of the production of the Grandarene variety of banana. Comes in the conclusion. Finally, I got the best result, MS plus 2.5 microgram per BAP plus MS plus 2.5 BAP plus 0.5 cytokinin. This is the best result out of the 36 different concentration of the phytohormones, which can be widely helpful in like light reports due to increasing of the people in the whole world, and increasing suitable banana and plantain production for both local and export market. Thank you, sir.
So, propagation, tissue culture has a great role, I think so, for seedling, preparation, etc. I have seen in China, in Beijing, one of the research and exhibition commercial center, that near about 400 to 500 boys and girls, that is age limit 18 to 20 years, they are engaged for this sort of propagation, tissue culture of water lettuce. And there is a vast area of water culture center that they are developed. Not only exhibition, but also they are continuously producing something on their commercial basis. So this is one of the objects he is fulfilling like this. Very good, I think so.
Thank you all the presenters. So during the session we had 5 presentations, and the first presentation was done by Mr. Dr. M. Suresh Kumar on the ICT readiness of stakeholders. In that he discussed about the ICT options available to us and how different agriculture universities and some things which have dedicated ICT programs for farmers. So the presentation was very informative for the students and for us also. The second presentation was done by Dr. Appalaswamy on future challenges of plant breeding research for sustainable food security. So in that presentation we found the challenges before us for plant breeding, for food security and sustainable agriculture, and he highlighted on organic breeding particularly, which is the need of the hour. And the third presentation was by Mr. B.S. Behera, the research scholar of OUT. So he highlighted on the developed model of climate smart agriculture. So in that he discussed nicely about the climate smart agriculture, how we can make our agriculture and farmers climate smart so that they can face the natural calamities smartly. So the next presentation was by Dr. P. Chandra, and he nicely discussed about the onion production scenario in West Bengal and showed us some opportunity to produce the seeds of onion and how to increase the onion production in India so that we can improve our onion production. And Mr. L. Kandha, he discussed on the plant tissue culture techniques of banana, some improvements made under the present protocol, and he is in the process of developing a new protocol. So the session included 5 different lecturers from 5 diverse fields, but with a single aim of sustainable agriculture, which can be an opportunity or can bring more scope for food security. So I thank all the presenters, and I thank Chairman sir also for nicely organizing the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. And my left side, Dr. Chiranjeev Mandal, our ex-BCKV student, and now he is engaged with this teaching community of this institute. So prior to conclude, I should say the students, particularly who are now in the only first year and second year, and really they have done miraculously this sort of different types of models developed within a very short time. They have furnished this sort of very good thing, I think so. Really I praised, I appreciated from my end. This is a very good one, achievement, I think so. So, and as well as the participants from the different corners of the country as a whole, and different scientists of this institute, the organizing committee, I must convey my thanks, good wishes to all of you. So thank you. I'm concluding.